Cheech and Chong is one of the most successful comedy duos of all time. Their phenomenal success led to 9 hit comedy albums, 8 hit films, and multiple Grammy nominations. The duo parted ways in the 1980s, but they reunited in 2008. And today, we're very happy to welcome one half of the iconic stoner hippie comedy duo Cheech and Chong, comedian, actor, writer, musician, and art collector, Cheech Marin. Cheech, welcome to the afternoon show.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
So how'd you get the name Cheech?
Cheech is short for chicharron, and chicharrones are like are deep-fried pig skins. They're like pork rinds, you get them in the store.
Okay, sure.
Crispy, like a Mexican potato chips. And so when I was a little baby, my uncle looked in the crib and he said in Spanish, parece un chicharrón. It looks like one of those little chicharrones, man. Uh-huh. And so that was my name in the family. It got shortened to Cheech.
Now, your real name is Richard.
Dick for short, although not really.
And, of course, now to be Cheeched means to be extremely high.
Oh, baby. Is it really?
Yes. I mean, how does it feel to have made it into the Urban Dictionary?
As soon as you get into the dictionary, you're made.
That's right. You have made it into the marijuana vernacular.
Oh, baby.
Yes. According to the Urban Dictionary, the definition of Cheeched is when you get so glazed over from smoking the weed that you can't tell up from down.
I like that.
Yes. So used in a sentence, back in the day when we were burning a quarter a day, we got good and cheeched.
Really?
Yes.
I love that.
And I don't think I've ever felt as white as I did just now reading that sentence. So you are what generation Mexican-American?
I am third generation. My grandparents came here from Mexico when they were teenagers. So they were the first generation. I always count it that way.
Yeah.
They were the first generation. My parents were born here, and then I'm born here, and all of my kids were born here.
And you grew up where?
Half in South Central L.A., in a totally black neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 10, we moved to Granada Hills, which was the suburbs of San Fernando Valley, and it was all white. So one day everybody was black, and then the next day everybody was white.
Got both worlds.
Yeah, I was like going from Nigeria to Knott's Berry Farm, man.
And you speak Spanish?
I do now, yeah. But I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. I grew up hearing Spanish, but I didn't speak it on. And so I got to be around 40, and I go, you know what? I know enough of this where I get tired of saying, I used to want a beer right now,
Right.
So I started taking lessons, and I started going to Costa Rica a lot. And for months at a time, and you had to, immersion.
Right.
Yeah, that's the way to learn.
And what did your family think about the name you made for yourself? Were they supportive?
Oh, yeah. I had a job.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? My dad.
Yeah.
My dad, and it was funny because my dad's a policeman, LAPD, was on the LAPD for 30 years, and a lot of my uncles are policemen. Well, your dad being a policeman and you're this doper. It was the greatest thing that ever happened because it was his entree. He worked juvenile, and he was on his entree into the juvenile community. Hey, you ever heard of Cheech and Chong? Oh, yeah. Well, hey, he's my son. Come here and talk to me.
Wow.
Tell me where everything is.
Well, I'm sure people ask a lot, did he disapprove because he was a police officer? But no.
No. He only disapproved if he thought we didn't do a funny enough bit.
I see.
Oh, that could be funny.
Right. Did you expect Cheech and Chong to become as huge as it did?
No. I knew we were funny. I knew we were good, and I knew we were different. We were different than anything anybody was doing then. But you never know. You're just making it up as you go along. And it's in the hippie days, that like anything could happen. I didn't expect it to go as long and be the influence to be as widespread as it was. I mean, it's international.
Well, who were your influences?
Oh God, anybody that was on the Ed Sullivan Show. I love comics and I love comedians and I love written comedy, and I was always a fan of that. And anybody that came on, Myron Cohen I loved, or any of those guys that came on the Ed Sullivan Show, I would be glued. Red Fox, I love Red Fox.
So how did you and Tommy Chong get together and come up with these two stoner characters?
Well, I met Tommy in Vancouver. I was living in Canada for 3 years, and I made my way to Vancouver. And he had started this improv acting company in a topless bar that his family owned, and it was in the worst section of town, and just absolutely the worst. Chinatown, Skid Row, boom, down there. And it was the first Topless Bar in Vancouver, and he had turned it into an improv comedy room, but with topless.
I love it.
It's the best thing that ever happened. Are you kidding?
Exactly.
Oh, man, I get to hang out with naked girls to smoke dope and do improv, and I get paid? Whoa. Okay, where do I sign up for this? It was just, we did 4 hours of improv a night, naked.
Wow.
You know, so it was like...
That adds a whole different dimension to it,
It was
really.
a whole different deal, and for people that didn't want to see you do that.
Right.
You know, they didn't want to have long-haired guys talking to them. They
came to see the women.
Naked girls.
Right.
So, okay, we're going to get to the naked girls in a little while, but first you got to... And, you know, it was really interesting. It was when it was a topless bar and the girls were just topless dancers, they'd come out and there was a live band and they'd come out and shake them for, 3 numbers. And the guys wouldn't even look at them. They was drinking, look up every once in a while. Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah, I got it. And so when we started the theater, the girls would come out fully dressed. And they would be in some kind of skit and talking to each other, and then slowly they would start to take off their clothes. And then the pure interest, you could hear a pin drop, and these guys were glued to that. The only problem was they didn't drink as much.
Exactly, because they were so transfixed.
It was like they were peeping toms now instead of topless bar guys.
So you had so many hit comedy records at a time when there was such a thing as a hit comedy record. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, comedy records have sort of become obsolete.
Yeah, well, records have become obsolete.
True.
The thing is, we were in a golden age of recorded comedy right then. It was us and George Carlin and Lily Tomlin and Firesign Theater, Ace Trucking Company, National Lampoon Radio Show. All those, we all came out at the same time, and it's like, okay. And so we were record makers, so... Our competition was Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones, really not other comics. We were on the pop charts.
And, when listening to your albums, what stands out for me and for so many people is the detail. Yeah. I mean, each scene is set so completely, almost like a scene in a movie. So, each track achieves this realistic, almost visual effect.
Yeah.
I assume that was intentional.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it just happened. No, I mean, our influences were radio theater, and one of my big influences was Ken Nordine, who was he was a voice, and he did a series of albums in the early 60s called Word Jazz, and he had all these sound effects going in there, like, oh, I want to do something like that. That's cool. But mostly radio theater, so we just created radio theater, and you had to put yourself into the scene, because everybody else's comedy, Carlin, Lily Tomlin, whoever, were live recordings of their act in a club.
Exactly.
So it was great. I loved them,
Sure. But
we were different. We did it in the studio. It was like, we didn't have a live audience, so we had to make it something interesting. And we kind of tapped into that days of everybody was wearing earphones and, big stereos and sound effects and panning from left to right. So we played right into that,
And did you hire other actors, or was it you and Tommy doing all the voices?
Always me and Tommy, just in the studio. Hey, we need a voice here. Can you do that? Yeah, okay. And we just do it. And we used the recording technology at the time, and we could do 20 tracks. And multi-layers. Okay, we got 2 more tracks that are open here. What else can we put on there?
So you kept layering and layering and layering. Wow.
Yeah, and it just kept going over. And then it got to be its own deal. And it was so out of the norm that, like, it really caught people. Whoa, I'm listening to my headphones of Sgt. Pepper. I can, wow, Cheech Marin, wow, that helicopter panned from left to right. Wow, it was almost better than a punchline.
Yeah, exactly. So what was your process? Did you create these characters on the improv stage in Vancouver, or did you create them in the studio?
Some of them we transferred from Vancouver, but not many. But then we'd go into the studio. It was all created live in the studio, improv in the studio. We'd come like, okay, well, let's do this. Here, I got an idea about this guy. He walks into a store and blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's do it. What does he want to do? He wants to buy this and get out of there. Okay, and so we started improvising it in front of a mic. And why we could do that, because it was just 2 guys in a room the size that we're standing in now, and 2 microphones. It wasn't great expense.